Welcome to the Chuck Shoot podcast. I'm Chuck Shoot, your host. Today, my guest is Don Jamieson. So hard rock and metal fans should recognize him from VH1 Classics' That Metal Show. But he's actually done a lot of other stuff. He started working for MTV as a booker for comedians, and he did some joke writing. And he ended up getting into stand-up himself, and he opened up for Andrew Dice Clay for over 10 years. He worked on HBO's Inside the NFL, and he also wrote jokes for Lisa Lampanelli for some of the roasts that she did. He's got 4 comedy albums out, a book, an album of prank phone calls, plus his own solo show called That Jamieson Show, where he interviews some of the biggest rock stars like Alice Cooper. So it's really cool to sit down and talk to Don about his amazing career, all the things he's done, and plus I pick his brain about music, rock stars, the PC crowd, politics, and so much more. I think you guys will enjoy this one. Check it out. Welcome to the show, Don Jamieson.
Hey, man.
Yeah,
I'm excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, this is fun. So I'm going to get real deep here. So Jamieson, I always thought that was Irish, like Irish whiskey, but I did a little research. It turns out it's actually a Scottish surname, but then some people from Scotland moved to Ireland. So are you Irish or Scottish?
Yeah, it's wow. You're starting. You're starting with a deep cut.
Yeah, right.
You're not coming out with "Welcome to the Jungle." You're coming out with like "Coma."
Well, I was always curious about that. I was just like, I don't know why. I was like, huh, that's cool. He's Irish because my grandfather's 100% Irish. Drank every day, lived until his 90s, and I was like, oh, that's something we could talk about. We're both Irish, and I was like, wait, Jamieson's Scottish? I was like, oh man, that sucks. But then it seems like there's some Irish, some Scottish. So,
yeah, the spelling of my last name is Scottish. You're right, and but I've been to Dublin and Ireland so many times now that I feel like an honorary Irishman. Being the thin Lizzy freak that I am, that I've been making pilgrimages over to Dublin for many years now, and so I feel real kinship with the Irish. Only been to Scotland once, but I like to go back, and been to Glasgow, and I've been up in Inverness, up in the Highlands and stuff. But I want to check out Edinburgh and stuff. And my grandfather was born in Dundee, so
wow.
Those are some places I got to get to when we're allowed to go places again.
Yeah, well, that's cool. You've traveled definitely more than me. I've only been to Mexico and Canada, so I got some work to do. I'd love to go to Ireland though. It looks amazing, so green and everything.
Yeah, like I said, I started going just because I'm a big Thin Lizzy fan, and
that's right.
I know a lot of the people in that camp. Toured.
What's the band you told me about? I heard on That Metal Show. It's the kind of like the offspring of Thin Lizzy that's got like 3 or 4 of the members. I forget the name of it now. But I like them.
Yeah, Black Star Riders.
Yes, Black Star Riders. So good.
Yeah, Scott Gorham from Thin Lizzy. And I toured with them in Ireland and Scotland, which was cool. But before that, I was going over and I got introduced to Phil Lynot's mother, Philomena, who now is also passed. But, I used to go over there and spend time with her, and we would go to Phil's grave together and hang out while I was in town. And then I would do all the Thin Lizzy stuff. I have a bunch of friends over there now, and my buddy Jimmy Coop would take me to like where they shot all scenes for different videos and things like that, and visit the Phil statue, of course. So
there's a statue too? That's awesome.
Yeah, Phil has a statue in Dublin. Yeah.
Oh wow, you are a diehard fan. Is there stuff on the grave too? Because like when you go to Cobain's old house, there's like a park bench, and there's all this like random like items like cigarettes and cans of tuna and just random notes and things.
Yeah. So yeah. Oh well, people mainly leave flowers at Phil's grave.
Well, that's normal.
No cigarette butts.
Okay, that's good. So yeah, your 3 passions: music, comedy, and sports. Your first albums that really inspired you were George Carlin and Kiss. And then you ended up playing in some bands in high school, right? But you gave up on that because you didn't want to lug around equipment. Was that one of the main reasons? And also you just saw the odds and you're like, ooh, this is going to be tough to make it.
Yeah, well, I wanted to go to college. I really actually liked school. So, while my friends in the bands I was with in high school decided to pursue becoming a rock star, I said, I got to put that off. I want to go to college, get an education. I know what the odds are of making it in a band. So let me do that. And then I could always get back into it. But, by the time I went to college and I kind of got away from playing in bands, I kind of lost interest in just playing music in general. And then when I got out, I was sort of like, all right, yeah, I was into comedy. So I thought, maybe I'll give that a shot someday. But yeah, I always say it's like, I don't have to carry equipment. I don't have to split the money 4 or 5 ways.
Right.
I just put my dirty jokes in my pocket and I go.
There you go. Yeah. Well, and also I did like this. I heard you say your favorite advice is just jump and the net will appear and everything works itself out. So you did kind of take a jump. And somehow, tell me how you got this job. You were a comedy writer on MTV and you booked comics and you wrote jokes for the shows. Like, how did you get that job? That's got to be a very coveted job, especially when MTV was actually like playing music and stuff.
Yeah. I was coming out of college and I had hair literally down to my nipples. And I was like, well, I don't own a suit. I'm not a 9-to-5 guy, obviously. I have hair, way past, the length, and that, we're talking, 30 years ago. So I was like, well, my options here are going to be pretty limited. And I had met this woman at MTV at a radio convention because I was doing college radio, and she liked me. So she said, when you graduate, come on in and we'll see if we could find you something. And they gave me like a 6-week, like a freelance job. And 2 days into it, my boss said, go down to human resources and find out how you get hired full time. And I stayed at MTV for like a decade.
Wow. That's a long time to stay at MTV. Usually they get rid of people after, like a lot of the VJs only last 2 or 3 years and they're too old. And then they, right. Except like, Kurt, what's this guy's name? Kurt, what's his, Kurt Loder.
Kurt Loder's outlasted everybody.
Yeah. Is he still there? I don't even know if MTV is still on the air. But yeah, so then you decided you were booking all these comedians and writing jokes, and then you're like, well, I think I want to do comedy. So that's when you started doing comedy yourself. Was that tough breaking into that? I mean, did you bomb a few times? It seems like every comedian's got a few stories where they bombed.
Oh, I still do. That's why, you have to have a big ego to do this. But the good thing about comedy is there's always an audience waiting to knock you down a few pegs. Right. But, hopefully the longer you do it, the less it happens. But no, what was really important to me, Chuck, was I had made so many connections working at MTV behind the scenes that I could have called in a million favors. Hey, can I come work your comedy club? And can I come work this club and give me good spots and all that? But I knew that wasn't the right way to do it. I had to do it like everybody else did it from scratch, like pretending I have zero contacts. And when I finally left MTV, and this is where, jump in the net will appear is so important. In my head, I said, how much money do I have to leave this job and just become a comedian? And I had this number in my head, and that money was all gone within 6 months. Like I thought this much money will last me years while I build a career. Wow. But it was gone. It was gone so quickly. But had I had any knowledge of what I really would have had to have saved, I probably would have never done it. I would have been like, there's no way, I can't do it. I got to save $100,000 or whatever before I could become a comedian. So thank God I didn't know anything. It was just better to jump in, start doing it. And, at the end of the day, it all worked out. And, I had to really bust my ass because, like I said, the money ran out quick. And if I wanted to pay my rent, I had to take this shit seriously. Yeah. So how long did it take for you to get to be a paid comedian? I mean, to really start making a couple bucks at it took about 4 years. Did you have to do some other jobs in that during that time? Because you ran out of money in 6 months. So. Yeah. Well, I'd say, yeah. So I run out of that fund. I still had some other savings, and then I was still doing some freelance stuff for MTV. Okay. But I was out late every night doing comedy sets whenever I could. I mean, I used to go up at the Comedy Cellar at like 1:50 a.m. after like 70 comedians have gone on before me. Is it pretty empty at that point, or? What?
Is it pretty empty at that point usually, or?
Yeah, it's just the last 10 people who are too stubborn to go home. Um, and I would and I actually I had some decent sets down there.
Mm.
Considering my the material was not that great, but when you start out, you have this very youthful energy, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what kind of gets you going. But yeah, I would say to anybody, like, it's a good 7 years before you could start to make a living doing it.
Wow. And so in the meantime, I don't know if this was before you made it in comedy or after you were doing comedy, but you did some joke writing, not just for MTV, but did I hear Jon Stewart, Jay Moore, and then Lisa Lampanelli? You wrote jokes for her?
Yeah, I wrote a lot of jokes for Lisa. When she was the queen of the roasts. She did a roast on and I knew Lisa, from the comedy scene. We were friends.
Okay.
And I knew she was doing a roast on the Howard Stern show. I had done a couple, and then I started writing, anticipating I was going to do the next one. I wasn't on that one, but she got booked, so I just emailed her and I said, "Hey, here's the jokes I wrote, that I was going to use if I was on this roast. I don't want any money for them. You could just have them."
Wow.
And she wrote me back a half hour later and was like, "Not only am I paying you for these jokes, you're now officially, one of my writers for the roasts." So she loved the stuff. And I did that with her for about 10 years, until she left, and, she's not even doing comedy anymore. She kind of retired, but that was great. It was great writing for her because she was brutal, and, you could just write whatever you wanted.
Can you remember one of those jokes that, was there any omes that stand out that you're like, "Oh, I love this one. I'm glad I don't have to say it," or?
I don't think I can say any of those jokes anymore because comedy's sort of illegal these days.
Yeah, it's true.
The roast that I had the most fun writing for was the Gene Simmons roast because I'm a huge Kiss fan.
Right. Yeah.
So, normally I'd write, about maybe 5 pages of stuff for her, and she, I don't want to say it was all mine because she wrote the majority of the stuff, but I contributed as well. Okay. But with Gene, I probably wrote about 25 pages because,
wow,
it was crazy. But yeah, I wrote stuff like, Kiss sells everything. They'll sell you their toothbrush will make your teeth whiter than their fan base, stuff like that. So
yeah, Craig Gass does a lot of good stuff on Kiss as well. Like he does the impersonation of Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. It's amazing. Yeah, it's great. I love that stuff. So then you got to open up for Andrew Dice Clay, which as a kid in the 80s, my parents would not let me listen to those, but you go to your friend's house and they'd have the album. You're like, "Oh, well, he said, fuck and shit." And it was so exciting when you're a little kid, but that must've been pretty cool to open up for him. I mean, he's a seasoned pro and he's putting you in front of these big audiences every night. And you said he was one of the most generous people you've ever met.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. Like I said, man, when you don't put too much, obviously you have to think things through, like you do in your podcast. You have to think through the process and what you kind of want to do with it and everything. But you never know where this stuff's going to take you. So again, for me, not thinking too much about this has led to the greatest stuff in my life. Having gone on the Howard Stern radio show, the greatest radio personality ever, and sitting there and making Howard laugh. Being asked to do the Orion Fest, Metallica's Orion Fest, perform comedy there, and having James Hetfield shake my hand and say, "Hey, now we know comedy works at our festival." And then the ultimate is, yeah, man, Dice was my comedy idol. And to finally one day meet him and get to know him and then eventually go out and on the road with him and him become one of my closest friends, it's been incredible, man. And yeah, he gave me these great opportunities to go out in front of these crazy fans. And it was it's the best comedy education you could ever get. Because if you could win over a Dice crowd, you can win over any crowd.
Yeah. Is he still pretty dirty? He still does. I haven't seen him do stand-up live lately. I mean, I've never seen him live. I'd love to see him live. Does he do some of the old material and stuff?
He'll do the poems at the end.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
But he always has tons of new stuff because he realized at one point, I'm going to put Dice in the modern age, because the modern age now is so absurd with all the political correctness, and
Yeah.
you can't say this, you can't do that. So he puts, Dice in those situations, and it's even funnier because,
That is
he's
funny.
still him. He's still Dice. He's
Right.
still dirty. He's still filthy. But it's almost like he doesn't understand like why everybody's in such an uproar.
But is that kind of a character that he's created? Is he like that, like behind the scenes too? Or
Well, I think it's definitely a character. But
okay.
within a character, like even if you're an actor and you take a role that's totally not you, there's still some of you in it, right?
Right, because you say your comedy is an exaggerated version of yourself. I'm assuming that's most comedians. Like Howard Stern, that's an exaggerated version of, or he says, actually Howard says, this is who I really am on the radio, and then I go home and I have to censor myself. So
yeah, kind of, yeah. So yeah, the performers, that's usually an exaggerated version of what they are in their real life, So yeah, but underneath, the tough Brooklyn guy with the cigarette is a real, giving guy, wants to give young comedians a chance and opportunities and stuff like that. And he's done that for a lot of people. I mean, Sebastian Maniscalco opened for him for a few years, and now Sebastian, goes and sells out arenas and big places. So
he's great. Yeah, when Dice just had he had a role in that A Star Is Born. That was a big movie. Is he doing acting too?
Yeah, he's been doing a lot of it. I was with him when he got the role in the Woody Allen film Blue Jasmine, and then it kind of steamrolled from there. He did a season of Entourage, and then he did Vinyl on HBO with Martin Scorsese. Star Is Born. So yeah, he's definitely been doing a lot more acting, and he's good.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. So, you talk about like comedy and metal being mixed. There's a few people that have done it, like Sam Kinison, and obviously Andrew Dice Clay, like we just talked about, open up for Guns N' Roses. Jim Brewer's doing stuff. Brian Poussin, Craig Gass. Do you find it stressful, like when you actually have to open for a metal band doing stand up? Like, does it ever not go over well? I would think that would be hard.
It's tough, but I have a little, recognition with the rock crowd from doing that metal show. So it's not that weird to people when they see me, because if they know who I am. So it's like, okay. And then I tailor all the material to the audience. It's all material about bands and music and musicians and stuff. So it's not like I'm just going up there and I'm talking about, my life. It's like I come out, I'm talking about Black Sabbath, Alice Cooper, Motorhead, Ozzy, Twisted Sister, all that, and, people, I look at it as like, if I go out and tour with a band for a month and I have a couple of bad shows, that's just like any opening band would have.
Yeah.
So,
true.
I found the response actually to be, really good for the most part. And yes, it's scary. Yes, it's nerve wracking. But it's really been a lot of fun. I've got to do some killer tours. So
do they set it up well? See, that's kind of what I've heard from comedians, is that there's certain places that just aren't set up to do comedy. Like the lights will be on and people will be standing up and their backs are turned. And is there ever that kind of thing? Because some of those music venues, I would assume there's like people standing, and that's not really, you're not really used to people standing for stand-up comedy, right? They're usually sitting at a table with a drink and.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of have it down to a science, man.
Really?
Like, I do a 25-minute, direct support set right before the headliner. So it's just one of those things where, like, I come out all guns blazing, bing, bang, boom. I hit them hard, and by the time, they realize they're not into it or that they love it, it's already like, okay, are you ready for, Zach Sabbath? Boom. And it's like, next thing you know, it's over.
That's awesome. Well, I'll have to definitely see. I know you opened up for Faster Pussycat a couple of years ago, right? You've opened for a few bands.
Yeah. Faster, I've done a few times. And I did a great tour of the band Pop Evil, Zach Sabbath, Nashville Pussy. So it's been fun. And they're all cool people. It's great. I love traveling on the bus with the band. You get that brotherhood of being in a band, but you don't have any of the drama of actually being in the band.
Right. That's perfect.
It's just me. I'm like, hey, I'm out of this.
Yeah.
I don't know who hit a bad note last night.
Do you hear a lot of that drama on the tour bus?
There's, when there's a dozen people on a bus, for a month straight, there tends to sometimes be a little friction, but now for the most part, it's just, it's pranks, it's jokes.
Oh, okay.
It's, watching TV, listening to music, it's a good time. But yeah, look, all bands have drama. Even if bands all love each other, there's still going to be that friction of like, wow, the song should go this way. You didn't do this at this point in the show, that's why stand-up's great for me. It's, if I bomb, it's on me. If I do great, it's me.
True. Yeah. Well, speaking of comedy and music, you had the guys from Steel Panther on your show, which is really cool. I have seen that band more times than I can count. Like my girlfriend say every time like we go to Vegas, I'm like, we got to see Steel Panther. She's like, really again? But every time I see him, it's like a different show. Like, I don't know. I'm sure you've seen them live. Like, are you a big fan of theirs? Like, cause I think they put on an amazing show that's music. I like their music. I like their covers, and I love the in between like comedy shit they do.
Yeah, they're hysterical. I've been seeing them for probably 25 years, back when they were middle school.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I got a long history of being, a fan of theirs, and then obviously getting to know them over the years. When we used to film that metal show in LA, they played every Monday night at the House of Blues on Sunset. And I went every Monday night when we were out there to see those guys and hang out with them and stuff. And they just, man, they blew up into this huge thing. And I'm sure that there's enough of my lip prints on their ass from trying to kiss their ass to take me on tour with them.
I was just gonna say that would be an amazing show. Is you and Steel Panther? That would be perfect. I feel like that's a perfect mix.
Yeah, they're very well aware that I want to tour with them.
Okay.
We tried to make it work a couple times, and it just didn't go down for whatever reason. But hopefully, when we can all get back out and tour again.
Yeah, or maybe add Craig Gass to the three of that would be an amazing show too. I'd definitely go see that. So yeah, let's talk about that metal show. Obviously, that's probably what you're most well known for. You did 14 seasons. Can you explain like how that thing came together? Like, because there are so many metal podcasts and radio shows right now. I mean, there must have been a ton of competition to get that job. I can't picture anyone else doing it except you three, but were there other people in contention for that gig that you guys beat out?
No, I mean, it was our idea. We pitched it to the network.
Oh.
So yeah, like the thing that most people that nobody sees is like sort of how you got to where you are.
Yeah.
And, especially with Jim and I, we had done so many TV pilots and taken so many meetings with different networks, and none of it went anywhere. I did like 10 failed pilots before that metal show happened, but nobody knows that because it never aired on TV. It's like the industry's way of saying, we'll pay you to stay off television, basically. So when we got to the VH1 meeting, Jim and I, we just acted like goofballs, like we wore our camouflage shorts and concert shirts. We were busting Eddie's balls throughout the whole meeting, and he's all uncomfortable, like, oh, these guys are going to ruin it for me. But we didn't care. We're like, let VH1 buy us lunch. Nothing's going to come of this, just like everything else. Who cares? But that ended up being what they liked about the three of us, which was they were like, hey, listen, you guys are the experts with the hard rock and the metal. Definitely. We don't know that world as much. We just love the chemistry between you guys. So let's shoot a pilot and see where it goes. So, sometimes when you do everything wrong, the right thing happens.
That's hilarious. So how did you guys know Eddie Trunk? Just from the radio station or from MTV or both? Or
yeah, just from the radio. Jim and I would drive home from stand-up gigs and we would listen to Eddie's show, and then we met him backstage at an Ozfest, started, becoming friends, guesting on his radio show. And those worlds started to collide. And eventually Eddie was doing some hosting on VH1 Classic. And he goes, they're looking for programming. Let's come up with an idea and go in there.
That's awesome. So some of your favorite moments, you had Lemmy from Motorhead 4 times, Alice Cooper, Brian Johnson from AC/DC. Tell me about Marilyn Manson. He got kind of drunk on absinthe. Like he did the same thing on Talking Dead, which was like the show where you talk about The Walking Dead. I think he did the exact same thing, but he was making like AIDS and rape jokes, and you guys had to somehow edit that out of the show.
Yeah, I wish, I hope that our editor won like some kind of Emmy or something for that, the job that he did on that show, because he actually made it airable. The funniest thing I remember from that taping was, so Manson had, I think he was drinking his own absinthe. He's got his own absinthe called Manson. And he was just drinking it right out of the bottle. So at one point he decided that they told him you can't have the bottle like on the set while we're taping. So he asked like one of the PAs can you get me a cup for this? She comes back out with a styrofoam cup, like from the water cooler. He pours the absinthe in and the whole glass just disintegrates. The styrofoam cup just disintegrated. So
that's like a science experiment. Yeah, that's crazy. Wow. And then you wanted to have, you guys didn't get Ozzy on, and you didn't get Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. So what is this feud with Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons? Because is it because Eddie said that they shouldn't have had replacement people in Kiss? Is that what that whole thing's about? Paul Stanley called you guys Wayne's World? What?
Yeah. Well, listen, we had a lot of fun with especially Paul on the show.
Like you made fun of him even though he wasn't there?
Well, we took some lighthearted jabs at him, and so when he called us Wayne's World back, I thought that was funny. I was like, yeah, that's a good line. I mean, we really are kind of. But yeah, I mean, we wish we were Wayne's World. We made a lot more money, but but yeah, no, Eddie had a long career, obviously, before we did the TV show on the radio. And so, over the years, he's had some little skirmishes with some different camps. And unfortunately, because, for a long time when I would guest it on Eddie's radio show, Paul and Gene would talk to him all the time and everything was good. So I don't know what the snag was. Same with Sharon and Ozzy. I'm not, I don't know where the exact point was where they kind of went to war with one another. But yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't have them on. But, I know Florentine had seen Ozzy backstage when Sabbath came back, and Ozzy was a huge fan of the show. I mean, he was like,
really?
He was telling Jim, "Oh, I loved when you had Geezer and this one on." And he was, he could talk about like a lot of the shows, like he legitimately had seen them. So, it sucks, but I'm happy that he watched.
Yeah, and then you I guess I just saw Eddie talked about this the other day that you guys almost had Jimmy Page on, but he didn't want to do it because it said there was metal in the title of the show.
Yeah, that was weird, but we got to meet Jimmy Page, so that was pretty cool.
Is there anybody that you didn't get to meet that was on your list that you're like, oh man, I really wanted to have this person on? Or is that all of them?
Anybody from Van Halen, that would have been great.
Oh yeah, why not Van Halen?
You know what, man? Alex and Eddie really run that ship very tightly. They don't do tons of press, like anytime, they do press, you'll see like Eddie will, it'll be in a Guitar Player magazine or something like that. They don't really do tons of stuff. And yeah, it just didn't work out timing wise. When we started doing the show, obviously Dave had just come back into the band. So so Dave was sort of under the Van Halen umbrella again. So again, everything's kind of very, kept, they keep things close to the vest. But Eddie had sent us amplifiers and equipment for, our platform where we used to have the guest musicians play. So again, he was a fan of the show, but as far as coming on, it just never got there. But a lot of great players played through his amps on our show. So that was cool.
That's cool. Yeah. So like when the three of you guys get together, is it still kind of just like old times? Like you're doing the live dates now. I saw you got one coming up. What's it like the three of you off camera? Is it pretty much just the same?
Same exact thing. Yeah. It never ends. It's constant ball busting, and talking about music. I mean, we've been hanging out a lot, since the weather broke here on the East Coast, and Eddie and I live down by the beach, and Jim doesn't live too far. So he's been coming down, and we've just been, sitting around, and after a while, I go, guys, you understand? And then we have like, like Mark Tornillo from Accept came over the other night, and we were all hanging, and PJ and Steve from Trickster came over one night, and I go, you realize we're still doing the show. We're just not getting paid, and there's no cameras. Right. It's literally, this is literally we're still doing the show.
So why not just throw some cameras up there? Why not get like a Kickstarter thing or GoFundMe and have people, contribute to the budget and get some advertising? I'm sure you get some people to sponsor the show.
Yeah, well, we have to. We did a spontaneous That Metal show. We had Eddie's 12-year-old son film it, and we put it up on Eddie's Facebook page. So we did that, and then, like I said, we're doing this live show in Lakewood, New Jersey, on September 18th. So for people who want to come out, the stadium tour was canceled, but people could come to the Blue Claws Stadium in New Jersey and see us. So we're now the stadium tour.
Okay. Yeah, I bet I could get a pretty cheap flight to New York or New Jersey right now. I remember when the pandemic hit, I was looking at flight prices. I was like, oh my God, like flights to New York were like round trip, I think less than $100. It was insane. From Arizona. I'm in Arizona.
Okay. Yeah.
It's crazy, but it seems like things are maybe coming back now a little bit.
Yeah, things are loosening up, which is good because we're about to get back into the cooler weather here. So, yeah, man, I'm starting to book some more stand-up gigs,
good.
Like outdoor gigs and stuff like that. So it's starting to feel normal again. But,
that's cool. One of the things,
we got a long way to go.
Yeah. One of the things you did on That Metal show that I loved is at the end, you guys would always throw out names of stuff that you were listening to, because it's so hard to find new music. I mean, there's new music coming out all the time, but to try to like figure out what's good, you have to sift through all the stuff. And it was cool to hear your guys'. I think that's how I heard Black Star Riders and a bunch of other stuff. I heard you mention the band Dorothy. I haven't checked them out. Is there other newer bands that you've been listening to that you want to throw out names of?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the female aspect of hard rock has really been amazing in the last like 6, 7, 8 years. Dorothy, Lizzy Hale, Taylor Momsen and the Pretty Reckless. Orianthe's got a new album coming out. So there's been so much strong stuff coming that way. There's a whole wave of bands that are new and young with tons of energy who are doing like the 70s vibe, like Crowbot and Greta Van Fleet and Rival Sons. And those bands are all great. And then, I've gotten into death metal a lot over the last 10 years. So I would hold up 6 Feet Under and Obituary and bands like that on the show too. But the other guys aren't into that stuff, but that was a good opportunity to kind of just show your personality.
Yes.
And let people know like what you're into, because I was never into death metal. And now it's like, they say you get more mellow with age, but I listen to more and more extreme stuff as I get older.
That's crazy. You ever hear this band, the Black Moods? They're like our local band, but they're getting national attention now.
Yeah, they're getting big too. And death metal's got a really good scene now. There's bands that are not necessarily crossing over into the mainstream, but names that people know, like Amon Amarth, Gatecreeper is a band a lot of people know. So that's cool. And then, there's a whole slew of, for a lack of a better term, maybe they'd be considered like alt metal, like Fever 333, Alien Weaponry, bands like that. There's a whole young thrash scene coming up, like Power Trip, who unfortunately lost their lead singer. But they're a killer band. So, what goes around comes around in hard rock and metal all the time. That's why there's so many ebbs and flows. And 2020 really was gearing up to be such a great year for all those reasons, that I just mentioned. But hopefully we could just take that. And then also the reunions, right? Rage Against the Machine, Motley Crue, My Chemical Romance, all those bands. Hopefully we could just take all that goodness and put it over into 2021.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of those shows are getting rescheduled for 2021. Hopefully they do happen. Do you get to do a lot of those like secret show? Like I saw you talking about one of your favorite concert shirts, which is Charlotte and the Hornets, which is a pseudonym for Iron Maiden. And I guess they would use that when they do these like small little secret shows to kind of warm up for their big arena tours. Do you get to go to a lot of those like little secret shows?
Yeah, well, Charlotte and the Harlots was, that I was in college, I think, so that was just one I had to try to buy a ticket and get there, and that was just one of the greatest shows I ever see. To see Iron Maiden, on the when Number of the Beast, had really blown up, and to see them in a club with like 400 people was, wow. Yeah, it was pretty incredible. And yeah, I mean, I guess I've seen some warm up shows, and obviously I've been able to be backstage a lot of shows and kind of see the inner workings of how things happen. The one thing I've never lost though over the years is that feeling that I had when I did go see like Iron Maiden play L'Amour's in that tiny club. It's like I'm just still always fascinated and excited as a fan. And I hope I never lose that, man.
No, yeah, I know. That's amazing. I sometimes feel like a kid talking to a lot of these bands. I'm like, oh, this is so weird. Like this is a band that I looked up to when I was a kid. Now I'm talking to them one-on-one. It's very bizarre. Like, do you feel that way too sometimes when you're interviewing some of these guys?
Yeah, I was never the starstruck person. But yeah, I was always aware that, holy crap, I'm sitting next to Bill Ward right now.
That's insane.
That never escaped me.
Yeah. So besides doing the music stuff, you also do, like we talked about, sports is another one of your passions. And you, I didn't know this, you were a writer for Inside the NFL, which was a big show on HBO. I think that's probably why I never watched it, because I can't afford HBO, but you won an Emmy for that, right?
I didn't have HBO at the time either, so don't feel bad.
Did I give you a free subscription for working there?
No, Jim and I used to go down to the studio on Mondays in New York and watch the taping because we didn't have HBO. So, but we also wanted to see people's reactions to our comedy segments that we did. And it was really cool, man. Jim and I wrote and performed in all these comedy sketches and sports themed kind of things, and people could find those on the internet under Inside the NFL with our names. But that was really a lot of fun, and working with like Dan Marino and Bob Costas was just so much fun. Those guys have such a great sense of humor, and we won an Emmy, which was incredible. I should, like I said, I should probably give my Emmy to the guy who edited the Marilyn Manson episode of our show.
Oh man, is there somewhere a copy of the unedited version of that? I would love to see that.
Yeah, probably exists somewhere. But
yeah, that would be fun to watch. Then again, he probably does that all over the place now, right? I mean, isn't that kind of, he just goes and does this on every show, doesn't he?
He's one of the last rock stars. It's like, he's famous and he's infamous. He likes playing the villain, and we don't have a lot of rock stars anymore. I talk about it all the time. I mean, we had fun with Phil Collin from Def Leppard on our show. We were like, man, back in the old days when you guys used to have the stage with the room down in the middle of the stage, and during the drum solo you guys would all go down there and like get blowjobs. Now you still have that same room underneath the stage, but now you have like juicers and like ellipticals and stuff down there. And he's like, it's, times are different now.
Well, he's Phil Collin, man. What is his secret? Because he's like ripped and he's old. He's older than me, but he looks like in way better shape. I mean, I guess the juicer's working or something.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that a lot of these bands obviously have gotten over, that part of their rock star existence, because they're still here, and the only guy who's able to really live the rock star lifestyle and still live a pretty long life was Lemmy. I mean, if Lemmy ever drank something from a juicer, it probably would have killed him. So
yeah. What is
But
your
all
take?
these-
Yeah. What is your take on that? Because so many of these guys I interview, they're sober now. Like, I mean, it's just like, it's almost like a cliche. Like, I'm like, okay, so yeah, then you partied too hard and then you had to clean up and now you're sober. You know, so you're still drinking, I think, right? You're not sober. Do you have to kind of slow it down as you get older? Because you don't want to die too young, but I mean, there's got to be some sort of balance, right?
Yeah, well, dude, I mean, the old phrase "party like a rock star." I've never, maybe when I was in my early 20s, I, pretended to party like a rock star. But being on a bus with these guys, you see like how much downtime there is, and you really can see where the pitfalls happen, and you could see where people would wander off. And you got 9 hours, you get into town, you have 9 or 10 hours to kill before the gig. Let's go get a few drinks, and then that ends up, you're drinking after the show and partying until late in the night. But nowadays, it's not like that as much anymore, because yeah, you get older, man. You have to figure a way to you want to put on a great show. I know, I very rarely overdo it anymore, but when I do, I know I'm going to pay for this tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll be wiped out. I won't be able to do anything. And so these guys all being sober now for all this time, I love it, because look, I mean, you got guys like Alice Cooper, sober 30 years, still putting out great albums. I toured with Zakk Wylde last summer. Zach's got 10 years under his belt. He's doing great, man. He's playing better than he ever was. Ace Frehley, sober over 10 years, still making great music. Did I mention Halford? Rob Halford, sober 30 years. Priest putting out great music. So, at some point you got to say, hey, do I want to die a cliche, or do I want to do this for a long, long time? And, the people who changed their life, they're still going, and luckily I haven't had any addiction problems in my life. But like I said, now seeing how bands, when they tour, where there's a lot of opportunity for trouble, and luckily I'm old enough to be able to resist that.
Okay. Wow. So do you guys ever, if you and Jim and Eddie ever get together, do you guys ever get drunk together? I feel like that would be kind of funny to see. Eddie seems always so calm and even keeled. I'd love to see him drunk. Does he ever get?
Yeah. We've had a few nights together. Yeah. But we've been having some beers and stuff over the summer. Like I said, we're getting together and just, popping, throwing back some beers, throwing some food on the grill and hanging out. And once in a while we let loose.
That's cool.
Eddie's role on the show was always the straight man, but
yeah,
Eddie actually has a really great sense of humor. And when he does let loose, people who go on the Monsters of Rock cruise have seen Eddie, because it's a tradition that he gets drunk with Faster Pussycat at the midnight show on the Monsters of Rock cruise, and he's the one that comes out with the bottle of Jack, and everybody chugs down the bottle of Jack, and
right.
that's usually when you can find Eddie in a very happy mood.
Yeah, but the singer Faster Pussycat's sober now too. A year, I think he's got a year under his belt.
So he's got 3 years now.
3 years was it? Yeah, I just saw him say like, "Oh, I'm sober for," and I was like, "Oh wow," because that was one of those guys who said like, "Oh, I'm not down with the juicers and all that stuff," and so, but then it must have caught up with him. So
yeah, it did, man. He he had a really bad health scare. I toured with Faster Pussycat
right
when Tammy was drinking and doing drugs, and then when he was sober, and it was a totally different experience. I had a great time both times. But he's just in such a good place, man. I'm really happy for the guy. And dude, I mean, singing better than ever.
Yeah.
He sounds like the records from the 80s, singing really good.
That's awesome. I want to see, that's another band I haven't seen live yet. I want to see them for sure. Did you tell me about this? I couldn't find any clips. You hosted a show called Beer Money. What was that? Was that like an online show, or was it, how did people watch that?
Oh yeah, it's on the sports channel here in New York.
Oh, okay.
It was like a sports trivia show on the channel that the Mets have here called SNY, the New York Mets. So yeah, it was funny. I used to watch it, it was like, I was like the the Alex Trebek of sports, like I asked trivia questions to these sports fans, and I had all the answers. So
nice.
I was like, no,
of course not. Yeah.
That,
So
of course it's easy when you have the answers.
So are you a Mets fan or Yankees?
Yeah, I'm a Mets fan. So when they called me in for the meeting to see if I'd be interested in hosting it, I said I am, but like I'm a comic, I like to bust balls. So if I make fun of the Mets, is that going to be okay? And they were like, do whatever you want. So they let me go out and go crazy, and it was really a lot of fun. I did 2 seasons of that, and I had a good time. They treated me well, and they gave me a lot of free tickets to baseball games.
Oh, that's cool. And what about, and for football, are you Giants or Jets?
Jets.
Okay. Because Eddie's Giants, right? Yeah.
Yes, he is. That's an experience everybody should have at one point in their life, watching a Giant game with Eddie.
Oh, really? Is he a diehard fan about music? Is he in sports?
Yes, he is.
That's awesome. So he gets really emotional with the. Yeah. And that's got to be hard. These last few, they haven't been good in a while.
Yeah, it's been tough on my man. But look, I'm a Jets fan, so I have no sympathy for him.
Well, it's been tough for the Jets too, right?
Oh yeah, I mean forever.
Sam Darnold and yeah, we'll see. Maybe this is the year. Football's starting. You also tell me about this. These I'm trying to remember which ones were you. You guys had this telemarketer prank thing that they played on Howard Stern. It's like and there were CDs. Terrorizing Telemarketers.
Yeah, me and Jim Florentine, but we have 6 CDs of us torturing telemarketers, and they're out there for sale on Apple Music and all that stuff, iTunes, and that was just something Jim and I were just like, we would just mess with telemarketers to tell each other funny stories when we went on the road together, and then the light bulb finally goes on, and we're like, hey, we should start recording some of these. So those are a lot of fun because everybody hates telemarketers, whether you're 8 or you're 80. Like they're just such a nuisance. And with everybody on the do not call list, we were like, we're on the please call list. We got an album to make. So
how do you get the rights to record those? You have to ask the people afterwards, or how does that work? I always wondered that. Yeah,
you just give them time to cool off, and then you call them back and go, we were just kidding around, and 9 times out of 10 they're like, all right, no problem.
Do they get paid for that at all? Or they just have to give you an okay?
No.
Okay. That's funny. Well, yeah, and then you have your comedy albums. I love the titles of these, like Hellbent for Laughter instead of Hellbent for Leather, and Denim and Laughter, tribute to Saxon's Denim and Leather. And also you have this really cool, who's doing the artwork spoofs that you have on your Instagram? People should check these out, because like they've photoshopped you into like all these famous album covers and stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah, this guy Steve Torelli on Instagram does them. He's a fan, and he just started making them up and posting them on Instagram. And so I always grab them and repost them. And he does a great job with that. And then my buddy Lance Eric, who plays in Bang Tango, he's done a few for me as well. So they're really funny. I love those things. So I appreciate both those guys doing it, because much like the telemarketers, they're not getting any money either.
Oh shit. Well, they're getting their name out there, so that's cool. Awesome. Let's see what else. Tell me this story. I heard you talking about one of the roasts, Sebastian Bach threw a coffee at you. I couldn't tell if you were kidding or not.
Yeah, that's on my album Denim and Laughter.
That's on the Denim. Okay.
The whole story about it. Yeah.
Okay, I have to listen. I only listened to some of that. That's your newest one, right?
Yeah, that's the newest one.
Okay.
So that the whole Sebastian story is on there, and we had a roast of Corey Taylor, and he was on the dais, and things got a little crazy, as they will when you get a bunch of rockers in the room. So but it's a funny story, so people should check it out.
I was listening to some of that this morning, and then there's a
he's got a good arm, man. He could have been a major league pitcher.
Have you had a lot of run-ins with him? I grew up when I was in high school, like 14. That was actually the first metal album that I listened to, was Slave to the Grind, that got me into metal. So I was a huge Sebastian Bach fan. Did you have a lot of run-ins with him over the years? He never did that metal show.
No, I don't know him that well.
Okay.
I know Snake and Dave, much better. I see those guys a lot more, but yeah, I mean, obviously Sebastian did that metal show a couple of times, and
did he? Okay.
I went to see him this summer here in Jersey, or last summer here in Jersey when he came through. Yeah, he still puts on a great show.
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I don't know if you remember, you must remember the 80s, like there was like a lot of religious people trying to basically like cancel heavy metal for being too vulgar or satanic or whatever. It seems like now there's kind of like this, I don't know what you call like the woke crowd trying to cancel people for being sexist or, racist or what. Like, do you have any fear of being canceled? Cause some of your materials, like you're kind of making fun of that. Like, are you worried about that at all? Cause I talk to other comedians and they're like, I say, are you worried about being canceled? And they're like, yes.
No, I'm not that worried about it. It's the Denim and Laughter. The whole theme of the album is political correctness, wokeness, and cancel culture. So that's the whole theme of the record. And if you listen to the record from beginning to end, if you can stand it, the ending makes, the ending really drives home the point. So if you listen to it in its entirety, the ending will really make a lot more sense. And it kind of wraps everything up in a bow. But no, look, I got nothing to be canceled from. So, what am I worried about?
Right.
You have to reach a certain height, everybody wanted Louis C.K. to be huge. And then the minute he was, people wanted to take him down. And that's what happens, sadly. We're in such an attack mode in this country. We're such tattletales on social media and stuff. But I think, what I try to do, man, is just make the jokes funny. And if you make the stuff, not that Louis isn't funny. Louis was more a product of just getting super huge. And the bigger you get, the more haters you get. But like for someone at my level, which is much lower, to me, it's just like if the jokes are funny, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? That definitely. And even if you don't appreciate the humor, you go, well, okay, it's funny though, but it's not my style of humor, but it's funny. So that's the one thing people can't deny. If you're doing it in front of a room full of people and nobody's getting offended, then it's. If you have a certain sensitivity to something, that's on you. That's not on me. I can't take a poll of everybody in the comedy club saying, what can I say? What can I say? Because I won't be able to say anything.
Right. So and I think part of it is just maybe knowing your brand. Your brand is kind of it's more vulgar. So people are going to hopefully know what to expect. Especially if you're opening up for Dice. I mean, that's kind of goes hand in hand. Yeah. People aren't going to a Dice show expecting to be clean, I wouldn't think.
Right. You'd really be, that would really be a shock to some people's systems. But I think my crowd kind of knows what they're going to get from me. And I think there's a way of writing and performing now where you can adapt to the times, but you can actually get another layer to your comedy where you're still going to get the laugh and you're going to give the middle finger to the PC society at the same time. So, you kind of killed two birds with one stone, which is nice.
Yeah. Do you think the tides are changing with some of that stuff? Because I felt like there was a while there where it was like, whoa, you can't make fun of anything. And now I'm seeing more and more comedians make fun of this like woke crowd and the PC culture. Like, I don't know if have you seen that guy, Ryan Long? He's like a new comedian. I just heard about him, but he's from New York, and he had a couple of videos go viral where it was kind of that thing where he's making fun of all the. Have you heard of him?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I know who Ryan is.
Yeah.
And that's I think the key is, like I said, it's like I don't want to be the old guy on the yelling, get off my lawn. You don't want to preach to an audience. It has, you still have to present it in a humorous way. And it's good. It's good that there's pushback from people. I don't want to be preached to if I'm in a comedy club, but regardless of what my politics are, what my social stance is, if the comic's funny, that's all that matters. I have a good friend of mine who I've performed with a ton of times. Our politics are completely different, 180 degrees. And that guy makes me laugh so freaking hard every time. He's just so good. And that's the point of it. It's like, doesn't matter if I feel the same way as you do. It's the same with bands. I love Rage Against the Machine. I don't care about what the lyrics say. I just love the songs. I love the energy of it. I do love that they're rebels. I love what they stand for, but I don't have to agree with the politics to enjoy the music. And I'm not going to let that get in the way. Just like Paul Stanley saying we're Wayne's World, is I'm not going to listen to Kiss anymore.
Right.
That's
yeah.
bullshit.
No, I'm the same way. Unless somebody does something like so over the top where I'm like, okay, I just can't, like Bill Cosby. Like, I don't think I could ever see his stand up. I just can't separate those two things. That was like too much. But yeah, the politics and stuff, I try to respect everyone's politics. Do you find it's harder to avoid politics now with comedy? You say you kind of don't want to do politics because you're going to lose half the audience, but it seems like it's almost unavoidable right now with the election coming up, and it's just everywhere. Like it's almost
the difference is this. Well, first of all, I always do a small bit of political stuff on every album because you have to talk about the time that you're in.
Right.
But I'm not bright enough to really take a side. So I just, whatever that 5 to 8 minutes of political stuff is, I just want it to be funny, like I said.
Yeah.
And I think that the difference that is this, with politics being so divisive these days, is you don't want to preach to the audience and say, there's a big difference between saying, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. I've made up my mind, I'm voting for Joe Biden. And saying anybody who votes for Donald Trump is a moron. You see?
Right.
One person is saying something and making their opinion known.
Yeah.
And the other person is saying half of my audience is morons.
Right. It is.
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why would you ever divide your audience in half by insulting half of your crowd? It's fine if you say, I like Trump or I like Biden, whoever. But when you're insulting the people, and I see this going on with a lot of rockers these days, whose crowd is all over 40, most of them conservatives, and they're going off on Donald Trump. It's like, who do you think your audience is? Your whole audience is voting for Trump. Right.
Or vice versa. I mean, I see it go both ways where I think, was it Mark Torian from Boa Boys? He was, liking or retweeting Trump on Twitter, and then people were going after him for liking Trump. I mean, it's just like, so yeah, it's like you definitely, especially with music, the only time I see it works is like if that's your thing, like if you're Mark Maron or one of those, guys that's your political comedy. If you're Jon Stewart, obviously you're going to make fun of conservatives.
Oh yeah, of course. And there's guys who are so great at it, man. Bill Maher as well.
Yeah, he's good.
And it was funny. I did Dennis Miller's podcast.
Oh.
And which was amazing. But he's pushed away from all the politics and stuff because he's just like, he's like, I don't even want to get into it. It's just like, because it's so freaking divisive these days. And it's a shame because Dennis actually did it well. And that's why people expect it of him. The guys who do that well, you want to hear their politics, right? Because
their take, yeah.
They're great at doing it. Like, Lewis Black, same thing. And Dennis just was natural at it. But so when I did his podcast, we didn't talk politics at all. He's like, I don't even want to get into it.
Huh. Interesting. Thanks so much for doing this show. I always like to end with a charity. Is there a charity that you work with or that you want to promote here?
Sure. I'd love to promote Inc. Against Cancer. They're a group of rock and rollers who, do great charity work for young cancer victims. Oh. And, they help a lot of these younger kids who have cancer, who are unfortunately terminal, sort of get like their last wishes. We just sent this young cancer warrior, Maddie, to the beach. She had never been to the beach in her life, and we got her down to spend the day at the beach. And a few weeks later, she passed. But we were able to get that done. Yeah. And so they do great work, and they know how to rock and roll. So Ink Against Cancer.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, you got a lot of stuff out there if people want to check it out on YouTube. I love by the way, I love the video of you and Jim Florentine you're doing an interview for some local news show, and you basically pranked the host. Was that a planned thing, or did you make that up on the spot?
Yeah, people should. We talked about it on the way over, because we had done like 10 interviews that day, and we're like, we got to do something different and just have some fun. So
God,
people could look that up.
Just
type Don Jamieson, Jim Florentine prank.
Yes.
A KC news station.
God, that was so. Were you really escorted out afterwards? Were they pissed?
Oh yeah. The guy walked behind us and kept saying, "Turn left here, turn right here. There's the front door. Goodbye."
Jesus. Wow, that's bad. Well, so there's that clip, and there's some other stuff on YouTube. You've got a book called "You Might Be a Metalhead If," that's kind of like a Jeff Foxworthy thing, and you've got your show, That Jamieson Show, where you interview other rock stars and stuff. I think you had Satriani on, and the Steve Brown from Trickster, and I think the latest one was the girl from Vixen. I think I saw a clip of that, right?
Yeah, I had Jen. Yeah, I've had a ton of people on. Glenn Hughes, David Coverdale, Alice Cooper did the show. Wow. Dennis Miller came on. So yeah, it's sort of my little way of keeping that metal show alive in spirit, and that's over at compoundmedia.com. And I appreciate your time today. Yeah. And it was good hanging with you, bro.
Yeah, and your stand-up comedy albums too. The one I was listening to is just even on Spotify, so people could check that out. Do you get them on Sirius? Do they play your stuff on Sirius ever? Because I hear a lot of comedians make a lot of money off Sirius.
Yeah. On Raw Dog, they play. They play a lot of my live stand-up, and then I forget. There's a more of a family-friendly channel that plays a lot of the Terrorizing Telemarketers stuff.
Oh, cool.
One of the comedy channels on there, but yeah, they all play the stuff, and cool. So yeah, check it out, and hope you dig it, and most importantly, hope you laugh, and yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, and thanks, and they can check out your website for tour dates, because you'll be hopefully touring again once everything opens back up.
Starting to pick up, Chuck.
Yep,
so
awesome.
let's keep the curve down.
Yes.
And let's get everybody back out on the road.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Don. I appreciate it.
Be well.
Okay, bye-bye. So that was such a great combo. You can see why they had him on that metal show, and that show lasted 14 seasons, because the guy not only knows his music, but he's also hilarious. Really look forward to seeing him in person do stand-up once live shows are back, of course. But check out his website. Follow Don on social media. He's on all the platforms to keep up with what he's doing. And whatever you do, don't follow me on social media, because, you might be offended by some of the crazy shit I post, and we wouldn't want that, would we? So if you're bored, you can write a review of the show on iTunes and tell me how much I suck, because I'm always excited to get that constructive criticism. But until next time, have a great day or night. Remember, shoot for the moon, or, it's kind of like Don said, if you jump, a net will appear. So it's good advice. It worked for him. Take care.